Looking back on the week that was and forward to the week ahead, it's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Waiver wire, trades, roster management. To win in fantasy football, you must remember one simple rule. Never get out hustled. It's the Fantasy Football Hustle. Here are your hosts, Brian Drake and Dwain McFarland.
Hello, Fantasy Football Universe. How are things out there on this beautiful August weekend? It is the Fantasy Football Hustle, preseason post-week 1 edition. I am your host, Brian Drake, joined alongside FootballGuys.com writer Dwain McFarland. We are proud members of the FulltimeFantasy.com podcast network, and you can check us out on Twitter at Drake Fantasy, at Dwain McFarland, read our work at FightingChanceFantasy.com, and Dwain, of course, as I said, on FootballGuys.com. All the pleasantries are out of the way, Dwain. We did all the contractual things. Now let's get down to it, my friend. You sat and watched a ton of football, and we're going to break down week 1, quickly hitting on all the big news. How's it going? Let's just jump right into it, man. Dolphins, the big Kalen Ballage, Kenyon Drake. Who's going to be the starter? Oh, my God, this guy got first-team reps in practice. What did we see from the first preseason game?
Yeah, in the first game it was a little bit different. We actually saw Kenyon Drake work with the starters, and Ballage quickly came in the second drive. So Fitzpatrick was still in the game at that point, who is officially, the starting quarterback up until now. So they both worked with the starters, but it was Drake who got the first start. I think the simple thing for people to remember here is Ballage has carved out a role. It looks like it's more as the banger. He did catch a pass in this game, and it turned into an okay result. But when you just watch the play unfold, he's not a natural pass catcher like Kenyon Drake. I think Kenyon Drake's going to own the Rex Burkhead and James White roles in this offense. And if he additionally gets to see some 1st and 10 type carries in the first series, or two of games, I think Kenyon Drake is going to be fine. So his ADP is already starting to fall. I think if you can get him in the 6th or 7th round, that's still fine right now, and we'll continue to monitor.
In Atlanta, Devonta Freeman obviously didn't play, and there's a big shakeup here with their backup running back. Last year, Ito Smith got a lot of run and was a hot waiver wire ad after Freeman went down, but now Brian Hill is really nipping at his heels. What do we see from these two running backs? And from what I'm reading, it looks like Hill might be passing him.
Yeah, that's what you're hearing right now as far as this game goes. And again, you don't want to jump to conclusions on one preseason game. But when you've had multiple data points and things you're hearing from beat writers, and you can start to connect the dots, that's kind of what we're doing here. And this one threw us a little bit of a curveball because really Ito Smith was the guy. He started the game. So Hill came in on the second on the same drive, though. So that kind of, to me, what that says, it's just what the beat writers are saying. It's going to be it's not just going to be one or the other backing up Freeman. It sounds like they're both going to be kind of splitting that. So when you have a drive and they both work on that same drive, that kind of lends to, the beat writers are probably right on this. I still give Ito Smith the slight edge as the cuff to own. I would just deprioritize owning a cuff for Atlanta right now, just because whenever you have a situation like this, it's just less valuable.
The Titans took on my Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night and actually put a whooping on them pretty bad. And the guy who really stood out, because Corey Davis didn't play, but Adam Humphries looked good. They were targeting him all over the place, including in the end zone.
Yeah, Corey Davis didn't play, neither did Delaney Walker. Obviously, Derrick Henry's still out with a calf. But this is an offense where I do pay attention in the preseason more, and it's not necessarily – sometimes I'm paying attention to a player because you're looking for a specific thing you want to know if they're getting better at, but then you're also looking at new offenses. And when you get a chance to look at a new offense and it's being installed, which is happening here with Arthur Smith, they're still going to use a lot of the things that Matt LaFleur left behind. His fingerprints are still on the offense, but Arthur Smith wants to do some of his own things, right? So they go out and they pay Adam Humphries a lot of money to come in and play slot. Oh, by the way, Mike Vrabel is a New England disciple, so he comes from the days of he played with Wes Welker. He knows what that looks like. He knows who Julian Edelman is. So they paid some money to Adam Humphries. And even though those other guys were out, I did still find it, interesting that Mariota attempted 8 passes, Drake, 6 of them to Adam Humphries. Now, yes, part of it is the other guys aren't playing, but this guy, they moved him everywhere. They used him in 12 personnel. Now, again, this could be because Davis was out, but I liked what I saw. They were motioning him They were using him as the Z, right, or the flanker. That's the guy that gets to line up off the line of scrimmage versus, the split end or the X has to line up on the line of scrimmage. So Humphreys was the guy, and I expect Davis to be the X. So we're going to have to watch next week. Humphreys, right now with A.J. Brown being hurt and missing time, Humphreys may be the Z and the slot receiver, and Mariota loves him. He's very comfortable with him, and he operates in that range of the field where Mariota is very comfortable and very accurate. We know Mariota's kind of created this, kind of the persona that we're starting to see with Mariota is he doesn't want to take a lot of risk. He's almost like an Alex Smith kind of guy, right? Well, if you're a guy like Adam Humphreys and you're going to be working, 5 to 10 yards down the field almost every single play, that's the kind of player that I could see getting a ton of looks. And by the way, he looked really good. He was creating solid separation.
Sometimes it's almost too easy. We just need to follow the money. The teams are telling us what they want to do. And Adam Humphreys got paid very well to come over and play. I mean, it's not like they signed some scrub to a 1 year, $500,000 contract. So
yeah, and I mean, one quick note on it too, to your point, because they did spend money on receivers. I found this interesting. So last year, LaFleur ran 12 personnel 30% of the time. He only ran 11, like 50-something%, one of the lowest in the league. This is just one drive with Mariota, but I've got 7 plays from 11. And you've got 3 plays from 12 and 1 from 21, which that's 2 running. That's a fullback basically being on the field. And in those plays, so Humphreys was in the slot for a screen. Humphreys was motion. Humphreys lined up off the line. Play action to Humphreys. So, I mean, he was very involved. We may see more 11 personnel from this offense is another thing for us to watch.
And if this matters in your leagues, and some leagues it does, he was returning kicks. I don't know if it's going to happen in the regular season, but hey, bonus points right there if he's returning punts. Let's swing over to Jacksonville now. No Foles, no Fournette, so we kind of got a little, glimpse into the backups for the Jaguars. Alfred Blue, though, did get the start, and he played the first 2 drives. Anything to glean from Jacksonville in this new Nick Foles era?
No, I think, nothing to bang the drum here about, like the beating over your head right now.
Yeah, but my kid's running around upstairs getting ready to go to a pool party.
It's awesome. So Alfred Blue did play the first 2 drives, like you said. All this does for me is I don't want to own Alfred Blue. So I was hoping Raquel Armstead would be the 2. Now, the interesting thing with Armstead is they've been using him more as a pass receiver, which is not really what he was known for as being one of his strengths. So what we may see here, Drake, is Raquel Armstead maybe becomes the TJ Yeldon. Which, if that's the case, then we got to kind of tap the brakes a little bit on Fournette because I think I have Fournette at like 55 catches. I'm assuming he's going to, take that role. I was thinking there was really only going to be a 2 backfield. So now the thing I'm taking out of this is I just want to keep an eye. Is this turning into a 3-way kind of deal where we're going to have a TJ Yeldon again? If so, that kind of lowers the floor for Leonard Fournette. One other quick note here is Westbrook didn't play. Neither did Chris Conley. Conley might be the number 2 in this offense. DJ Chark did play. He had a target or 2. Keelan Cole played. He returned kicks. So right now, if you were to make me say, who's the number 2 in Jacksonville? It's Conley. It's going to be Westbrook and Conley, and then you're going to have Keelan Cole and DJ Chark working in, behind that.
I took Conley in the Scott Fish Bowl because Mike Dempsey, who hosts the show on Sirius XM, and he's in tune with the Jaguars, he was saying that a month ago. He goes, Conley has the rapport with Nick Foles. And he's like, he's going to start. Nobody was listening to him at the time, but now it's playing out, and the guy actually knew what he was talking about. Not a whole lot going on with the Panthers. Starters mostly rested. Anything you saw from them?
No, I just thought it was interesting that Kyle Allen played over Will Grier. I've kind of, Matt Waldman ranked Will Grier his top prospect at quarterback this year, and I was excited about Grier landing in Carolina just because if Cam Newton does have a shoulder issue again, I was hoping that Grier would be able to stabilize the offense enough that you don't need to discount other Panther skill players if you're drafting them. So just something to follow from that perspective, but more of like a tertiary, like 3rd level kind of concern, not something that, folks need to pay a ton of attention to.
Coming out soon on FightingChanceFantasy.com, there's going to be a sleepers and busts article, and I'm one of the writers featured in that. And my quarterback sleeper is just this. Any quarterback who runs. Get your hands on. I want Kyler Murray. I want Lamar Jackson, or I want Josh Allen. And turning to the Ravens now, Lamar Jackson's growing on me. I know he's still a terrible thrower, but he's running. He's looking a little better, a little competent. I think this guy, if you look what he did over the last 6 weeks of the season, he was killing it at quarterback. I think I might be in now on Lamar Jackson, Dwayne.
Yeah, he was killing it because of the running. So you've got to buy into that. And,
Sure.
I think someone asked Harbaugh recently at a press conference on the over-under on 125 attempts for Lamar Jackson. And they were comparing it. I don't remember if it was the Redskins or what they were doing. But anyway, Harbaugh said, take the over. So he's going to run the ball a lot. Now, he's not a thick-framed guy. No. So I do worry about injury. He's got those narrow, hips, kind of skinny legs. Not as bad as Teddy Bridgewater, but he's pretty – doesn't look real robust from the hips down. So don't want him taking a ton of hits to those legs. But anyway –
he looks like what I saw at the beach.
What I saw from Lamar Jackson, he did play a good bit. He was 4 of 6, had 59 yards and a touchdown. What I like is that he averaged 9.8 yards per attempt. And I'm going to chart his throws, all of his throws today. I didn't get a chance to yet. I've been catching up on all these games. But Miles Boykin was also targeted very often. He had a couple of drops, but he's out there. Now, Marquise Brown didn't play. He is back at practice now, coming off the Liz Frank issue. But I still lean to Brown being the guy I want to own if I'm going to own a receiver here, because the volume's going to be so low on passes. I want to take the guy that has a chance to score on any touch. And it's not that Boykin isn't explosive, but Boykin's probably going to be used more outside the hash marks, which is where Lamar Jackson has struggled. And I see, the ability for Brown to move all over the formation. Hollywood's going to be used everywhere, and he can score from anywhere. So anyway, one more quick note. No Ingram. Gus Edwards played the first 2 drives and the fourth drive. Kenneth Dixon worked in on the third drive. Justice Hill did not get on the field until the fourth drive. Again, nothing to read too much into. There could be a very specific reason. They may have just wanted to see Gus Edwards because they may be thinking they're going to cut him, and they just want to make sure that they're not. Because it's the same thing with Kenneth Dixon. Justice Hill, they just spent a pick on, so we know he's probably he's going to make the team unless he just has an absolute nosedive. He's still the guy I like to target after Ingram because I think he has the most different skill set from Ingram, right? He's got that home run hitter mentality, and he works well as a pass receiver out of the backfield. So nothing to overreact to, but you just want to monitor it. Kenneth Dixon's a guy that I still like, though, Drake. If he gets released and goes to the right team, he could still have value somewhere else this year.
He'd be great maybe in Tampa Bay. That noise you hear, Dwayne, not my kids running around upstairs. That's the hype train coming down the tracks, and it's getting louder and louder for David Montgomery. And it doesn't matter who played first because, as you predicted here, or as you said on Twitter, Mike Davis got the start for the Bears in the first series. But David Montgomery scores a touchdown, and whoo boy, we're off to the races now with David Montgomery being a third-round pick.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Why it does matter in this case is because we've been hearing all along that they want to use 3 backs. And Tariq Cohen did not play last night or on Thursday night. They've said all along, Mike Davis is probably our starter, and he was. So, but when we hear the word starter, I see this as being more of a split between the 2 guys. I've actually got Montgomery projected for more of the carries, but it's still something just to monitor. If Mike Davis is going to be involved, because Tariq Cohen's going to be involved, they are not going to take Tariq Cohen and just say, oh, we're not going to use you. He's too much of a mismatch weapon in the passing game. And so that means you've got 2 guys, battling it out for the carries. There's not going to be a ton of receptions to come with either one of these guys. And man, it's just, I love David Montgomery. He had a great run, where I actually posted it on Twitter. There's penetration up the middle. He sees it, quickly reacts, makes a jump cut to the left right behind his pulling blocker. And then he beats the unblocked man to the corner to go score a touchdown. So the guy's skills are legit. I just think it's probably going to be one of those deals where it's really going to be a pain in the butt until like week 6 or 7, where maybe he can just take the whole job over. And then it's just him and Cohen.
Are you taking him in the 3rd, 4th round if he's there in the redraft? No. Too high.
I'd rather have Chris Carson, to be honest. I'd rather take the team that's going to run the ball 600 times, and I know the guy that's going to get 60% of the work because there's only 2 backs working, versus the team that's going to run the ball 525 times and split it between 3 guys.
Speaking of a team splitting it possibly between 2-3 guys, the Colts rested a bunch of their starters. What do we see between Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Williams and all the other thousands of backs they have here, including Deonta Foreman, who's on the roster?
Honestly, I really don't have any clue what all this means. I thought it was interesting, though, that Hines played the first 2 drives with Mack out. So either this is them sending a message to Hines, hey, get your crap together, or he really is. They're going to really try to use more of just 2 guys. Last year, early on, if you remember, Drake, we talked about this often on our show, even once Mack got back, they used 3 guys. Mm-hmm. It was Wilkins, it was Mack, and it was Hines. Very much like what Doug Peterson has done for the last few years with the Eagles, and that's where Frank Reich comes from. So we'll just have to wait and see. Jonathan Williams did well. But, I mean, with this team, we've still got Deonta Foreman. We've got Spencer Ware still on the roster. We've got Hines. We've got Mack. Mack's in no danger as being the lead guy. He's still going to be game script dependent from what I can see. But as far as the backup, we'll just have to monitor this and see who it's really going to be.
One of our waiver flavor guys from last year was Robert Foster in Buffalo. And what happened here, Dwayne? He didn't get in until the second team, so he's really not in the mix with these Bills starters. It really is, I guess, just the John Brown show on the outside. John Brown is a tremendous value in drafts, by the way. He is falling into the teens, and you can scoop him up and he's a starter. How about in Orchard Park? What do we see from the Bills?
Yeah. No player has brought me more hate on Twitter in preseason, because before anything was happening, my concern with Robert Foster was that his skill set was duplicated when they signed John Brown. I actually remember when you and we had, I think I mentioned this the last podcast, we had Jim Day on right after all the free agent signings. Right after all the free agent signings happened, and we were all so bummed that they signed John Brown because we loved Robert Foster. But the reality was Foster probably wasn't going to get to play with the first team, and everybody was coming back, oh no, it'll be Brown and Foster. No, they're both deep field stretchers. Mm-hmm. Now Foster may grow into more of that. I don't want to, just totally box him into just being that. But the guy to really watch here, Drake, is Zay Jones. Zay Jones last year, if you remember, before Josh Allen got hurt and then came back at the end of the season, went on his tear, Zay Jones was his primary target, and it was not close. The dude was seeing, even in an offense that isn't going to pass the ball that much, he was really leaning on Zay Jones. So Zay Jones, as I predicted, is the Z in this offense. He is on the opposite side of the field. And remember what we heard from all the way back in minicamp. What's the thing they've been wanting to work on with Josh Allen? They want to get more out of his short and intermediate passing game. Who fits those roles? Cole Beasley and Zay Jones, not Robert Foster. So Foster is still, if you want to stash him late in a draft, I'm not going to hate on you for it because John Brown could get hurt. And in that case, I think Foster's going to hold value. But for me, he's on my waiver speed dial. He's not a guy I'm going to draft. Zay Jones, on the other hand, in this particular game, Josh Allen threw 11 balls. Guess how many Zay Jones got?
5.
Yeah, you're looking at the threat. You're a cheater, Drake. But yeah, almost half the targets. So Zay Jones actually may be even over John Brown, the guy to own. In best ball, I'm still probably going John Brown if I'm going season long where I'm managing a roster and actually have to stomach putting somebody into my roster come week 2 or 3 because I got an injury. I'd rather have Zay Jones.
How about in this backfield? LaShawn McCoy didn't play. And diminutive Mr. Singletary is just keep getting high. I don't get this. Maybe you can educate me on the Devin Singletary stuff. He's a tiny guy. To me, he's a change of pace back. Everyone's talking him up, though, like he's going to be the guy at some point. I don't see it. Am I wrong?
Well, I think stylistically, he's very similar to a guy like LaShawn McCoy. So if he's allowed to play to his strengths, which is avoiding contact as much as possible, right, versus trying to take on contact, that can work with his body type. The problem is eventually in this league, because everyone else is faster than you and has the same reaction times and all of those things, it's such a narrow difference between most players. You still have your elites, but between most players, it's so close, that style, at some point it peaks out for players. And it's a matter of if he can carry that to this level or not. Because if you depend on that and it doesn't work, and now you start taking the hits at that size, it's bad. So with Singletary, we're just going to have to watch. To your point, no LaShawn McCoy. He played after Gore with the starters. They still have TJ Yeldon. We're just going to have to see who gets released. I think Singletary's obviously making the team.
Yeah.
And it looks like Gore's making the team. We know McCoy is going to make the team unless they make it. I guess I shouldn't say that. They could easily, if they really like what they're seeing from Singletary and Gore, they could cut McCoy and save some money. Not that they necessarily, need it. But McCoy could be a cut. But that's what we've got to wait for. Does TJ Yeldon get cut, or does LaShawn McCoy get cut? Because I think Singletary and Gore are making the team.
How about the kid who's playing rugby or whatever, breaking off the long run? He looked fantastic on that score.
Yeah, I have no clue. Talk about a guy that I really had no clue about, and I still really don't care. But yeah, good for him.
Hey, let's move over to the Jets now, staying in New York State. Well, technically they're in New Jersey, but you guys get the point. So sticking with the Jets here, Sammy Darnold looking good, and maybe one of my favorite players to draft later in the rounds, Jamison Crowder, doing what Jamison Crowder does. I think there's value to be had all over the AFC East in terms of these wide receivers. We just talked about John Brown, now Jamison Crowder. How about with the Jets? What do you like from the green and white?
Yeah, I'd rather own Crowder than Brown, to be honest.
Oh, sure.
He's going well after Brown in most of the drafts that I do. He's been one of my favorite picks late, so it was good to see this.
Like 13th.
I remember 2 years ago and 3 years ago, Crowder was the hot name. Remember this? 6th and 7th rounds of fantasy drafts, and did he have health issues? Yes, but now you're getting a discount to the 14th, 15th, 16th round. Like you said, you can take him with the last pick of your draft, which I've done several times, and you can sleep, you can sleep like a baby. This guy's going to probably get anywhere between 18 and 22% of the targets in this offense. I've got him at 18% right now, but he has legitimate upside to go higher. And Sam Darnold looked great, 4 of 5, 68 yards. And Crowder, he hit on a 28-yarder, and Crowder caught a touchdown. So I think Crowder's a guy that, he's going to start moving up. I actually hate that he had this game where he kind of flashed and he had his little highlight reel on ESPN. He's probably going to start creeping up, but his draft price probably isn't going to get to a point where you would just say, oh no, I can't stomach it. Anytime from the 12th round on, Jamison Crowder's has real potential to be a steal.
Absolutely. A guy who's been flying under the radar a little bit, but starting to get buzz as a sleeper is Preston Williams. Let me try that again. Preston Williams. And we're not even drinking beers here. I got a Gatorade in front of me here on a Sunday.
I got a coffee. What's
Sunday
wrong
morning.
with you, Greg?
So Preston Williams is jumping off the page in Miami, and he looks like a guy who could make some noise down on South Beach. What do you see from this kid? He's big. He's strong. He doesn't have a ton of competition on this roster, and they're going to be losing all the time. So pass targets should be flying all over the field.
Yeah, I think this is just one to monitor, but he looked great. He made 2. If folks haven't gone and watched, and you've got access to NFL Rewind, just, go and, click on the little, icon at the top right where you can pull down all the plays and just go watch a few of the Preston Williams plays. You don't want to overreact to it. He's still a backup right now. But when you think about Kenny Stills, okay, ho-hum, journey veteran, journeyman, just hasn't ever really stood out. Devontae Parker, we know, just has never put it all together. There was an article that came out this week from a guy that scouted the Dolphins' talent and talked about how he wasn't a fit with Adam Gase, basically because he's not an intelligent player. Hello? Yep, we know this. And we've even heard it in Devontae Parker's interviews. He's like, oh, it's all God-given, man. Nope, Devontae, you need to wake up and study your craft, buddy, because your career is slipping through your fingers. But anyway, we know that we've seen Fitzpatrick, targeting, Parker, et cetera, but I see it's very possible that Preston Williams easily finds his way into the starting rotation, especially on a team that's likely to win like 3 games. They're going to want to see what they have in this guy. And oh, by the way, they're also going to want to see what they have in Josh Rosen. And guess who he did most of his damage with? He and Josh Rosen, there is something to the quarterback receiver connection that develops from 2 guys on the second team in camp. And often they're going against the first team defense and they're coming out there and wanting to show, what they have and make plays. And he and Preston Williams, man, they're simpatico. They're on the same page. So if Josh Rosen finds his way into the starting lineup this year, that's when I would make my move to pick up Preston Williams. If you're in a dynasty format, you need to make sure you're drafting Preston Williams. If you're in a straight up rookie draft, I would recommend taking him as high as the 3rd round right now.
Another young guy that before last week no one's ever heard of is Jacoby Myers, but he's blowing up now in New England. A couple of touchdowns. Holy smokes. We talked about him last week as someone to monitor, and then lo and behold, the guy goes crazy, and now all of fantasy football is talking about this guy. Realistic shot to play with the 1s in New England, or at least the 2s. We know there's opportunity abound in New England.
Yeah, I think he has an opportunity. It's that consistent, pervasive theme that we're hearing over and over around him. The beat writers like him. Tom Brady apparently has talked highly about the guy, and now we see it play through in the preseason. I mean, and that's something you want to see. You know, again, a lot of folks say preseason doesn't matter. Some people overrate preseason. It's somewhere in the middle. But for certain guys like this, and same thing with Preston Williams, you just want to see him check the next box, and he's done that. So it's not something where, you know, we go out and claim him, you know, this is their slot receiver. No, that's going to be Julian Edelman's going to move to the slot and play the Z. But Myers could find his way onto the field in 3 wide receiver sets more often than we thought he was going to. Just another quick note on the Patriots. You know, N'Keal Harry, I saw several folks say he was outplayed by Jacoby Myers, and he was outplayed, even by, who's the other guy that came over from Washington? Maurice Harris, right? And those two guys, and the reason why people say that is I watched the whole game. I went back and watched the whole thing, at least the first half. People are saying that because those two guys got touchdowns. So that's great. But honestly, N'Keal Harry he did the things that you expect N'Keal Harry to do really well. I would say the plays he made were bigger to me than what I saw from Jacoby Myers and, Maurice Harris on an NFL level. He made a great back shoulder catch and then stuck the landing nearly, which would have cut him loose for a big run after the catch, which he's also good at. You know, he had 2 targets in the first drive whenever, you still had all of the starters out there, which essentially was, I think, equal to Myers and more than Maurice Harris. Those two guys did more of their damage in the second and third drives against all the backups for the opposing team. So just saying, don't get overzealous with the Jacoby Myers hype. I still think that N'Keal Harry is going to be starting. Myers is more of, if Edelman stays hurt, I would definitely have much more interest, in Myers at that point. And if I were to say right now, I had to pick a handcuff for Edelman to play that kind of role, it probably is Myers, because apparently he's a very intelligent guy despite being a rookie.
I made a joke on Twitter this week that Kiki Kuti walks into a bar and then leaves on a stretcher. Another injury for this guy. This time a right ankle. They're saying it's not serious, but what do we do with this guy? Now Duke Johnson's here, so we can transition to the Texans.
We got to move him down. Here's the good news for Kuti. He's probably going to be okay for week 1. But this happened to him last year. Different injury, but it lingered was my problem. His injury last year lingered. If this lingers, he's a guy that can't afford to have injuries linger because he depends on his explosiveness in and out of breaks, for his quickness, for his speed. He's a small guy. He needs to avoid contact. He needs to win the way God blessed him to win. He can't be trying to win in other ways. It's not going to work. So we just going to have to monitor this, see how it's lingering. I'm dropping him down a little bit, a little bit because of the injury. The bigger news here is Duke Johnson arriving, and Duke Johnson is one of the top 5 receiving backs in the league. And when I grade receiving backs, what I'm looking for are guys that can work down the field. If you've got an average depth of target beyond, a 1 and greater, I really want to look at your game. Duke Johnson, when you take it to that level over the last 3 years, he pops up as one of the most efficient pass receiving backs in the league all 3 years. So Duke Johnson is going to be Kuti now has he now has competition for the targets in the area of the field he's going to work, and it's not from some bomb off the street. This is from a player that's really good at it. So I think Kuti, for me, the big problem now is his ceiling's gone. I just don't see his ceiling anymore unless Will Fuller gets hurt. I see him as a slot receiver who could be nice. Maybe he still catches 18, 20% of the balls, but there's no upside to go beyond that now with Duke Johnson in my mind.
What's your thoughts on Johnson in general in terms of his role as a running back and what he does to Lamar Miller?
Yeah, I slotted him in for 30% of the carries, which is right around what Alfred Blue had last year, but I really gave him the targets. I gave him 10%. He has upside, and I posted this on Twitter. He has upside that if Kuti's injury lingers, he could approach 15, 16, 17% target share. And so at this point, I think he's a guy that needs to be drafted probably by no later than the 11th round, but I would be willing in certain roster construction situations to pull the trigger on him in the 9th and the 10th.
All right. Another backfield with a lot of moving parts is in Denver. News just broke this morning that Theo Riddick, the newly acquired third down back, is going to be out for probably 2 months. So take him out for 8 weeks. He's going to miss probably the first 4 to 5 weeks of the season. What did we see from Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman in terms of their splitting of the carries in Denver?
Yeah, the Theo Riddick thing, man. It's I'm sorry for his injury, but like from a fantasy perspective, I know this sounds terrible, but like when I first saw he was injured, my immediately thought was, okay, this is okay for Royce Freeman and for that's so terrible.
We all
think
think
Theo Riddick's a great. I know. I'm just being honest. I think a lot of people, like you said, do think that. I'm just being honest that I thought, okay, Freeman and Lindsey now have more value again. My problem here is, well, he's out 4 to 6 weeks is what I think I saw, Drake. So
4 to 8,
or was it
like that? Yeah,
4 to 8. So
it's never 4.
He's going to be. It's never 4. I don't know why they put that part on there. I think you're going to probably see him by week 5 or 6. Then Riddick will be back. So for the first 4 games, I think this helps. Now they could keep Booker and keep him in that kind of a role until Riddick is back. But man, you just don't want to see an offense that's not going to score that many touchdowns. They're gonna score enough. They're going to be efficient, but this offense ain't going to score 50 touchdowns. Ain't going to happen. So we're looking for less mouths to feed in that kind of scenario. And here we have more. And what I don't like about Riddick being there is, to me, it hurts Philip Lindsay, because my hope was, wow, we're hearing these two guys are going to split carries with Freeman and Lindsay. Well, maybe Lindsay can still catch the balls, right? And now you bring in Riddick. No, well, now there goes your 2-minute drill stuff, very likely. Unless they really think Lindsay is that guy and they just wanted Riddick to be there as an insurance policy to be that pass-catching back in case Lindsay went down. So we still don't know for sure. But at least now, here's my thought on it, Drake. For the first 4 weeks, Philip Lindsay gets a chance to show he can carry all of that. Because I believe Royce Freeman's going to get 50% of the carries.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on since minicamp. This isn't something that just kind of popped up over the last few days. And guys like Cecil Lammey that are there every day that have been really good about predicting these things in the past, all the way down to Hillman. Remember Ronnie Hillman. Remember C.J. Anderson. Lammey was all over those calls way before anyone else, and he's been saying Freeman's going to get half the work, guys. And so I trust him on that. And so we really need Philip Lindsay to lock down the passing role. I'm not taking Lindsay where he goes anymore. I don't want to spend a 4th or a 5th round pick on him at this point. I'd rather just take Royce Freeman in the 9th round.
Yeah, same here. A guy who's picking up work because the aforementioned Duke Johnson is now in Houston is Dontrell Hilliard. So he is the new 3rd down back, I guess you could say. He's really not, because Nick Chubb can hold that role down. But he is a new back in here who could see an increased target share and some activity. So we had Noah Landry, no Beckham. Break down your thoughts on the Cleveland offense.
Yeah, I think Hilliard will step into the Duke Johnson role. He probably won't see as much of it, right? Mm-hmm. I think the big news here is, man, this is good for Chubb. Nick Chubb, and man, in like a big draft league, I wasn't in it, but in a big money draft like a day ago, went 4th overall.
Wow.
So this is a high stakes. These are high stakes players, and you got to watch, what goes on in those things. For me, Nick Chubb is a very early 2nd round, possibly late 1st right now.
I'm on board with the late 1st. I have the 11th pick in my major home league draft, so I'm sure those guys listen to this show, and I'm giving away. That's a guy I'm really considering at 11. I don't care about week 10. It would Kareem Hunt.
I agree.
That means nothing to me.
I agree. And, look, I like Kareem Hunt. I really do. But the guy's got, multiple marks against him. It's not like the Browns are invested in him. And by the time, if they get to that point and it's finally he gets to play and the Browns are 8-2 and Chubb is just killing it, I just don't see him changing. Nick Chubb's better than Kareem Hunt. There's also this. We talked about Nick Chubb at length with Matt Waldman multiple times last year. Matt Waldman had Nick Chubb rated ahead of Saquon Barkley, for Christ's sakes. So a guy that's been scouting, and looking at stuff that long, that has the process he does and how much he loves Nick Chubb. And then you saw it come to life, right? Data point number 2. And now you see, Duke Johnson gone. And this is going to be an explosive offense. Nick Chubb, man, the guy could score 16, 17, 18 touchdowns. That's within his range of outcomes, within if you're looking at, you're thinking of a bell curve, you cut the tails off. We're not even talking about the tails, like where, something just stupid happens that's all based on luck or some crazy, series of events that's unpredictable. He 15 touchdowns is very doable for Nick Chubb.
Mm-hmm. What'd you see with the wide receivers here? I know.
Well, I think the big thing,
Hollywood Higgins is like the new sweet spot for everybody.
Well, Callaway suspended,
Yep.
So we talk about pervasive themes and consistency. Well, Callaway just keeps doing it, right? He should have been a first-round draft pick, but couldn't keep himself clean in college, so he fell. And the Browns still took a shot on him. Shows up to camp this year overweight. So that had already put him working with the 2s and the 3s. Now he gets suspended again. And John Dorsey and the team don't just come out and be super supportive about it. They actually come out and say they're very disappointed in him. So I think Higgins, the role's his. The role is Higgins. So, and Higgins looked good in this game. He caught a touchdown pass from Baker Mayfield. I don't think he can do the same thing that Callaway can do. I think they wanted Callaway to really stretch the field. Because if you think about this, Monk and Kitchens comes from Arians. They wanted Callaway to be a field stretcher. Rashard Higgins is not going to be as good at that, but he's still a very good receiver that they can move all over the field. I don't think he's necessarily, worth drafting unless you want to put a real late round flyer on him. The thing I liked about Callaway as a late round best ball kind of guy is you didn't have to pick the weeks to be right and he could hit the big plays because he was going to see single coverage deep. I don't know that Higgins can do that. We'll have to watch. I think this does help David Njoku a little bit as well.
Unless Beckham or Landry, I think, goes out, you're never in a million years going to play Higgins.
Rashard Higgins, yeah.
You're never going to play him. Let's go.
Good player, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's go over to Seattle where Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, and Tyler Lockett didn't play. I saw my boy DK Metcalf, though. He was getting some targets out there.
Yeah, 4 targets, had 1 catch, but he was very close to pulling in another 2. So this is a guy I'm starting to warm to more, Drake. I was never really concerned about his inability to run routes because of the offense he landed in. And I think he's still going to get better about those other things. His application is limited on the field. People hear me talk about application. When I say that, I mean, can he work short, intermediate, deep, and can he win at each level in a variety of ways? No, he can't. But the thing he's really, really good at, is if you put him on any kind of post route, you put him on, a go route. And, oh, by the way, he did give a little head fake to a guy in this game where he made the corner bite just enough to give him that deep edge. So he did look good on that play. But you pair him up doing what he does best and you put it with Russell Wilson, I'm starting to think the ceiling for him could be something more like a Will Fuller.
That's what I said on Tuesday. This guy's going to catch 10 touchdowns.
I agree with you. Yeah, I'm coming around. I don't think you can put the likelihood on him catching 10 touchdowns, but if there was an offense where I was going to pick it to happen, it would be this one or Houston. And so I think there is the shot that he scores. I think he's still going to be absolutely maddening at times to have in your lineup. So I prefer him much more in a best ball or in DFS, as a guy that after he has a bad week and nobody wants to own him, then you get to own him kind of a deal. But he's a player that, even though he's probably going to be around 50 catches, he does have the upside to hit the 10 touchdowns, Drake. So high fives to you.
I liked seeing Rashad Penny catching the ball.
Yeah, go ahead.
Too.
Sorry. Yes.
I put it out there, and you came back on me. I said these Seattle running backs are going to catch the ball more this year. And I've read that. I've heard people talk about it. And lo and behold, here's Penny catching a couple balls. I love Penny as a mid-round target in redraft because not only is he one injury away from being like a top 5 fantasy running back, but he's going to have this really good standalone value where he's going to catch passes and, who knows, he can punch some into the end zone too. So I like him on my I don't want to flex him or anything, but if he's your first running back off the bench, your roster is doing pretty well.
Yeah, I don't mind him in that spot. The problem is he doesn't look good running, and that happened again here. He seems indecisive. He doesn't seem to comprehend the blocking scheme that's occurring in front of him. That's something I've been studying a lot, by watching what, Waldman and Moyer and a lot of those guys on Twitter and how they break down the game. And so I've been really trying to focus on that when I'm watching these games. And when I'm watching Penny, it's pretty nasty, man. He doesn't seem to really have any clue what the hell he's doing. He did look really good out of the backfield, which that role, last year, Mike Davis got to do a lot of that. I think that's where Penny is going to need to earn value because right now at this point, this also cements it for us. Carson didn't, they played quite a few guys, but they held Wilson, Carson, and Lockett out. That's their big 3. Mm-hmm. And so to me, I'm starting to believe that Chris Carson might hit more, and if he does, he's going to be a huge value. Chris Carson may see more like 60% of the carries, not 50. And so if that happens, man, Chris Carson's going to be worth like a second and third round pick in fantasy. So I still like Penny in the spot you talked about, and he has been falling a little bit more. His buzz has kind of faded a little bit, but I like seeing him, to your point, catch the ball, because I think that is where he can still add value. Well, and again, one preseason game. I just want to keep monitoring it. My problem with Penny, though, is the consistent drumbeat all the way back to Waldman's original analysis of him in the RSP was the stuff we're still seeing today. And so that's the kind of thing you don't want to see. You want to see improvement. So it makes you wonder, does his brain just not operate that way, basically? So we'll have to wait and see.
Another player that we're going to want to get on our rosters, either in a bench role or, if Melvin Gordon's not there, in a RB2 flex role, is Austin Eckler. So you charted the targets and the attempts and everything that he had with Justin Jackson. What did you find from the San Diego backfield?
Yeah, Twitter just totally refreshed on me, so I'm trying to get back to the feed. So you may just have it in front of you, and you can read it.
So Austin Eckler, and the first two drives, Austin Eckler, between targets and rushing attempts, had 9 to Justin Jackson's 3. I heard guys like Adam Kaplan, who I really like listening to his stuff, talk about being at LA camp, and said Justin Jackson could handle those first and second second down. Jesus.
Hey, we're talking a lot about first and second round picks. It's okay.
Yeah, but from what we saw in this game, that was not the case. It was really a lot of Austin Eckler. And as you point out on Twitter, you can get him for a 6th round pick. I mean, that's nothing for a guy who could come in. And if Melvin Gordon doesn't come back this year or takes 10 weeks off, this is a guy who's helping you get to the top of the standings in your league.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting watching that. He's clearly the one right now. And again, this is the first preseason game. But when you think about Austin Eckler's skill set and you think about what they have around him, with the Chargers and what Phillip Rivers likes to do. Remember what Phillip Rivers did with Danny Woodhead?
Oh, guy was huge.
Danny Woodhead was like a top 5 back that year. Here's the deal. The Chargers are not going to cave to Melvin Gordon the more and more they see this, plus the fact they already didn't want to, and Melvin Gordon's always hurt. My thought right now is Austin Eckler is a supreme target in the 6th round. I've started taking him over Christian Kirk and other guys. Now, it depends on roster construction, which we talk about, and we're going to do a big-time draft show for folks here. We'll do a few over the coming weeks. But
can't wait.
Yeah, the thing I love about Eckler right now, when I see this, is, man, he's going to be out there for 60 to 65% of the role. Jackson is still going to be a nice guy, and he's going to hold value in the 11th or 12th round. Jackson did score a touchdown later, but what this tells me is that, they're willing to lean on Eckler, and we've seen it before with a Danny Woodhead type role. He's going to catch a ton of balls, and, he could approach 150, 160 carries, it's enough. That's enough for him to still finish in the top 12 running backs in this offense.
If you follow me on Twitter, and there's only about 800 of you who do, you'll know that I just put out a little fun list of 5 things you should do in your home league this year. And the number one thing I said to do is get Kyler Murray on your team. I don't care if he's your first quarterback, if he's your backup quarterback, whatever it is. This guy is going to be fun, and he's going to put up a shit ton of points. So looking at this new Cliff Kingsbury offense, were you impressed with Murray? Was it what you thought you were going to see from this offense? Give me your views here on all things Arizona.
Yeah. One other quick note before I go there on Eckler, just for folks that may be listening going, man, 6th round, that's a lot. Remember, Eckler's value, even if Melvin Gordon comes back, is he should be going in the 10th or 11th round. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're taking a guy whose value falls to shouldn't have been drafted, right? If Melvin Gordon comes back and signs. So just want to throw that out there. But on Kyler Murray, here's what I saw. I saw an offense that's trying so far. They're building their offense around trying to overcome for a shitty offensive line.
Yeah,
it's terrible. So here's my concern with Murray now. He looked good. He was 6 of 7 for 44 yards. I don't want to see 44 yards. I want the Kyler Murray that gets to buy time and pop it loose deep. Now, that could still happen. They were pinned in their end zone to start the drive. He made some very good plays. So from all those things, it's good. And I like Kyler Murray. My deal is is not probably going to have as much time to throw the ball deep like we want to see. Number 2, who is the deep receiver on this team? Who's going to stretch the field for this team? Damiere Byrd? Damiere Byrd?
Yeah, it seems like you've got a bunch of guys who can do intermediate stuff. I thought it would be Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, we don't have a Hollywood Brown here, right? Number 3, the offensive line is terrible. When they finally went to the beloved Cliff Kingsbury, 10 personnel, that's going to change the whole league. We've never seen it before, not even the Houston Oilers. That's awesome. Hey, put your son on the air.
Here.
Let's get this question out here.
Derek, come on the air here with us. This is my son, Derek, who's 7 and going into 7th grade here.
I see the Eagles shirt.
Derek is a big Super Bowl guy. So he could tell you, he could tell you a lot of things. I'm talking with Dwain, my co-host here. Dwain lives in Dallas. Do you know how many Super Bowls the Cowboys have won?
2, I think.
2? All right, he's only thinking 2.
No, you probably coached him on that, Drake. You told him.
He's usually
that's probably what you've told him. You probably
told
him the Cowboys have only won 2.
All right, who won the first 2 Super Bowls?
Green Bay Packers.
All right, who won the Super Bowl 3?
Jets.
Look, see, you know some of his stuff. How many Super Bowls have the Buffalo Bills won?
0.
Who did the Eagles beat in Super Bowl 52?
The Patriots.
There you go. See, this guy knows his stuff. How many Super Bowls have the Giants won?
I think about 2, 3, or 4.
Well, that's 4, so we're getting there.
I'm impressed.
He's got a Super Bowl poster in his room, and he just stares at it and just learns all the scores. And here's a question: what team scores or has scored the most points in a Super Bowl?
The San Francisco 49ers.
How many points did they score?
More than 50.
All right, there you go. Look at this kid.
I found my new co-host.
There you go. All right, Derek, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. What do you think the Eagles are going to do this year?
I want them to win the Super Bowl again.
So do I.
Does he have an estimation of how many catches Dallas Goedert would have?
I don't think he knows it. Last night we're watching the game, and I just go, "Do you know what offense and defense is?" And he looks like, "No, I have no idea." Like, oh, okay. Tell me.
Hey, it's okay, dude. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, he's
very impressed.
He's getting there. So, all right, let's keep rolling here. Anything else from Kyler Murray and the Cardinals?
No. I mean, you heard where I was going. Basically, by the time finally Cliff Kingsbury unveiled the 10 personnel that's going to change the league, it was a sack. It was literally both tackles, Drake. You got to go back and watch this. If you go watch one play from this weekend, this was a good one to watch. It's 3rd and 10. The Cardinals are in 10 personnel. It's the last play of their drive before they have to kick a field goal. And there's 4-man rush only from the Chargers. They did not send a blitz. Both tackles get beat and converge at Kyler Murray within a second. So those are the issues that I see. And everybody's talking about 10 personnel. I don't know. I don't know that there's going to be 4 receivers on this team that are going to be consistently dependable enough to be out there. Just for the record, they only used 10 one time. They were in 11 pretty much every play. One other quick note for folks on the Cardinals. I don't know what this means yet, but Max Williams did play the entire first drive as their starting tight end with Kyler Murray. It wasn't either of the other guys. And I never was able to find out if Charles Clay, I didn't go back and look to see if he was held out or not.
Got a new offense going in Green Bay. So the Packers ran 21-12 personnel on 9 of 16 snaps the first 2 drives against the Texans, and you noted that 9 of these snaps were under center. Thoughts on the new LaFleur offense?
Yeah, this is just one that if folks have been listening to us, and it got a lot of love on Twitter, this one, is one that people were gravitating to, and it's for good reason. Because for Geronimo Allison to have value as an 8th or 9th round fantasy pick, which is where he's going, you're going to need to see 11 personnel like 80% of the time because he's the slot receiver. Marquise Valdez-Scantling has locked up the outside role. So I watched every snap, from this game while they still had starters in to the extent that they played their starters. Aaron Rodgers obviously did not play. Neither of the running backs played because they had still been injured. Aaron Jones is back at practice this week. But the thing for Geronimo Allison is if they run 12 or 21 personnel, say 30, 40% of the time, he's not going to be able to hit value.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw here. This was a team, dude, they used the fullback, a ton. And then they were using the 2 tight end sets a ton. And And remember, this is, okay, sorry. So just to think about it, preseason, yes, you can overreact.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about what LaFleur did last year, if you think about the offense he came from before the year he spent with Sean McVay, it was Kyle Shanahan. What does Kyle Shanahan run? He runs 12 and 21 sets all the time. His teams do not reach even 60% 11 personnel, which you need for your slot receiver to be successful, like Cooper Kupp, where people are like, how do the Rams have 3 receivers that are good every year? Well, because they run 11 90% of the time. And so people are immediately, jumping on to Allison as being Cooper Kupp this year, and he could be that. Mm-hmm. But he's going to need to see much more 11 personnel. The more and more I see here, Allison is more of a 10th, 11th round pick. He's just not worth an 8th or a 9th anymore in my mind because the consistent pattern that we've seen here.
Are we sleeping on Jimmy Graham a little too much?
Possibly. Because in this, yes, possibly. Because in this offense, the tight end gets a ton of love. And so Jimmy Graham is a guy that I'm very, very, very comfortable taking late in drafts right now. In fact, when I miss out on the tight ends, I'm getting more and more comfortable taking Jimmy Graham and TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Rudolph and TJ Hawkinson, because Mark Andrews at this point is getting to the point where I almost can't afford him. I've seen him going in the 8th and 9th rounds at times. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, I love Mark Andrews, but I liked him when I could get him in the 10th and the 11th and 12th round. I don't want to spend an 8th round pick on a tight end that's going to be on an offense that may throw it the least in the league.
So you listen to the Fantasy Football Hustle. Brian Drake. You can follow me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. The guy giving you all the answers here, that's high stakes winner and footballguys.com writer Dwain McFarland. You can follow him on Twitter at Dwain McFarland. Anything new and fun coming out on Football Guys in the coming days?
I got a couple of things, that I'm looking at. I'm going to talk with Bloom, about, but I've got an article coming out over at the RSP this week that I'm doing with Mark Schofield, where we completely break down the data and film for Derek Carr's game, and also Jay Moyer FB. So that's Jarrett Moyer, but it's at Jay Moyer FB on Twitter. He did a video breakdown on this around what it's going to look like with Derek Carr and Antonio Brown. So we're going to be bringing all those things together to give people a full look at it.
As I'm scrolling your feed here to find the next game we're going to talk about, what are your thoughts on this Antonio Brown situation?
Man, well, you know me, Drake. It kind of goes with the article that I just talked about. I was already scared of Antonio Brown. Whenever he was going in the early second and then the mid-second, I never took him. And then he started falling to the end of the second. I still was not taking him. And the reason why is Derek Carr, for lack of a better way to say it, he's just not good. He's good within the structure of a play when his first read is there. After that, it is literally a freak out. It's a throw an interception or check it down to Jalen Richard, which this year very likely could be Hunter Renfrow. So if we want to turn this into a broader Raider topic, hear a lot of people talking about Tyrell Williams, who will be used deep, being the guy to own now. I don't know. I don't know that that's going to be a fit for Derek Carr. I honestly believe that Hunter Renfrow could end up holding as much value, and you can get him literally for free because, Derek Carr is literally – he's a guy that likes to either hit that first read or he's going to check it down, just like what I just said. So that check down very well could be Hunter Renfrow. And I like Tyrell Williams. He's just starting to creep up now with all the Antonio Brown stuff. Anyway, on Brown draft, Drake, I wouldn't draft him before the end of the third. Honestly, he has to almost get to the 4th round. I'm still taking Thielen over him. I'm still taking Cooper over him. I'm still taking Diggs over him. Diggs is the spot where I may be like, okay, kind of, and maybe that's a coin flip because I still slightly prefer Thielen. But that's about the line where I'm willing to take Antonio Brown. Otherwise, count me out.
In Philadelphia, there's a running back rotation that they're trying to work out between Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders. We've still got Corey Clement. We've got Darren Sproles in the mix. So let's look at how they broke these guys down in week 1. You charted it for their first few drives here. The way I look at the Eagles is I don't care what they really necessarily did this 1 week. They play to get the lead. This is just me talking as someone who's watched every game of the Doug Peterson era. I think they're more inclined to get a guy like Miles Sanders on the field in a first down role when they're looking to do explosive plays. I don't think they set up and say, all right, first down, we're going to grind it. Second down, we're going to, run again, third down, let's bring our third down back in. I just don't see them doing that this way. Although when we look at what they did on the first series, it was Howard, Sanders, and then the second drive, it was all Sanders. Third drive, it was all Howard pretty much. What did you see from Philly? Your thoughts on this backfield that I know you really don't want a part of because Doug Peterson is just so maddening with his RBBC.
Well, I think actually I don't mind owning pieces of it. It's just all about price. Right now, Howard is the one priced right. The problem I have, with your theory, it's just not provable. We just haven't seen it. That's not the pattern that we've seen from them. In fact, the last few years, Doug Peterson has shown very much that he puts his plotter out there early. He just does it. He's never shown that he wants to put the more explosive back, whoever it may have been. Now, they've never had a Miles Sanders.
True.
I don't disagree. The Eagles want to play from ahead, yes, but I don't think they look at it as being, I have to have Jordan Howard or Miles Sanders on the field to do that.
It's situational.
That's what it's more situational. They like to come out. I think they like to probe the defense and see what kind of looks they're going to get. And I think they prefer to do it with their more dependable back who's going to play within the scheme like they want him to. That's Jordan Howard in this case. Then once they figure that out, it's going to determine how they're going to deploy Miles Sanders for the rest of the game. And I think it's going to change on a week-to-week basis, a bit. But I think we're going to see three guys involved, just like Adam Kaplan said, on, the what's the name of the show?
Inside the Birds podcast.
Yeah, Inside the Birds podcast. I always forget the name of that. Sorry. But he was reporting as an insider from camp that this would be the case. He said Howard's probably going to be the guy coming out to start games. We saw that. Sanders is the best back on the field. He's going to then work in. He's the best back they've seen in practice. He's then going to work in second. We saw that. He said, Darren Sproles is going to have a role. And so Darren Sproles is probably going to be the 2-minute back. Right? He's also going to be the guy when they're trailing and try to put a comeback together. He's going to be the guy when they want to go up tempo and they want to throw the ball 8 times out of 10 and do small ball passing drive. It's probably going to be Darren Sproles on the field. That's the problem for Sanders. We needed him to own the change of pace and the Darren Sproles role. Then he would be fine at his ADP. We would love it. But when Darren Sproles came in, and a lot of people poo-pooed it when I put it on Twitter, like, oh my God, you're so dumb. Darren Sproles is old. They didn't sign him for no reason. They trust him as a receiver out of the backfield. If he goes down, though, and Miles Sanders can earn that next role, that's where it will be helpful. It is worth noting that Miles Sanders completely missed a block.
They trust Sproles as a blocker, too. He's a tiny guy, but he can block.
Yeah, Sanders missed a block. So in this game, Howard also took the third drive. It's just going to be something where you're going to have to be okay with ups and downs. Miles Sanders is going to have some big weeks, even just on his 10, 12, 13 touches. Because this is a great offensive line. It's a great offense. They're going to be in the red zone. They're going to be at the goal line a lot. They have a good defense. The Eagles are going to be a supreme team this year. And so you're getting a piece of it. But right now, I was in a draft, Drake, 3 days ago. Miles Sanders went in the third round.
Whew, that's aggressive.
Yeah, it's getting, and he's creeping up. Now that's an extreme. But he's going in the 5th and 6th round every time right now. I will take Austin Eckler over Miles Sanders every time. Every time. It's not close for me right now. I'm going to take him every time because Miles Sanders likely, if this continues, is only going to be worth a 9th or 10th round pick. Whereas with Austin Eckler, what did we talk about earlier? What's his floor? It's a 10th round, but his ceiling is higher. Austin Eckler has a shot at 60 to 65% of the work in his offense, which is also a very good offense, and it's a much easier path to it. He doesn't have to beat anybody out. It's his right now.
I just did a draft for SportsIllustrated.com, and in that, Jim Day was also in it. He took Dallas Goedert, and I want to know what your thoughts are on Goedert. He's out for the rest of the preseason with an injury. They're going to hold him out. Everybody seems to talk up how much more work he's going to get and how great he looks. But I'm just, even as a fan of the team, nervous to say, like, in fantasy, how much can I count on a team's second tight end in my lineup?
You can't. This is thanks to our good buddy Sigmund Bloom, right? Bloom, the effect that, the big fantasy, analyst names can have on the industry. Bloom is the guy that's led the Dallas Goedert hype train. Here's the good news. It's fading. The hype train has been fading in the last several drafts I've done, which makes him much more affordable I don't often draft 2 tight ends. In fact, unless I'm doing best ball, then you have to draft 2 or 3. But often in redraft, just like quarterback, a lot of times I will only draft 1 because I'll just stream them after that, right? And so I'd rather – and it depends on the draft every year where the value is. But for me, Goddard is the guy I love taking as my 2. Because if Zach Ertz were to go down, oh my gosh, you get a top 5, top 6 guy. But until then, to your point, Drake, he's going to be maddening to own because the Eagles can deploy so many different personnel groupings based on what they think the weakness of the opponent is. You're just not going to know. There's going to be weeks where the 12 personnel will be big for the Eagles, and Goddard's going to have that 5-catch, 90-yard, 2-touchdown game. There's going to be probably a couple of those happen. He looked great the other night. Wesley Woodyard, who's a veteran starting NFL linebacker, is the starter for the Titans. He could not keep up with Goddard at all. Kenny Vaccaro got lost trying to keep track of him. The starting safeties for Tennessee, he showed Dallas Goedert is the tight end 1 on many teams right now. I would say maybe half in the league. Unfortunately, right now, he's stuck behind Zach Ertz. So I'm with you. I do not want him as my tight end 1. He's my favorite tight end 2 to draft, unless Mark Andrews falls, right, and you already own one, then I would put Mark Andrews ahead of him. But I consider Andrews a 1 right now. So Goddard's my favorite tight end 2 to own. And in the last few drafts I've been doing, and I think it's because now he's hurt, he's out until probably the preseason's over, which is fine with me because you saw you needed to see, right, out of the guy as far as a player. So now he's falling in, 12th, 13th, 14th round. I've drafted him a couple times in the last 2 days.
As Rick Dennison puts his stamp on this Minnesota Vikings offense, and Gary Kubiak now is influencing that run game, the hype for Dalvin Cook is going to be going up, 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 and up as you approach your draft day. Last year, I took him in a draft in the first round. I was so high on him. This year, you're getting, I think, a discount on him, being able to get him in the mid-second. He didn't play this week. Alexander Mattison got the start. I'm a big fan of his also. I think he has standalone value. What'd you see from Minnesota and from their running backs and their tight ends and everything else from their preseason opener?
Yeah, some of the drafts I'm doing, to your point on Cook, it seems like every 3rd or 4th draft I do, somebody just takes Cook in the first. He went at 1-6 in a draft last night.
Wow. See, these high-stakes guys, man.
That one wasn't a high stakes. That one was a best ball, but you're just seeing it more and more. It just gets to a point to me, though, where it is a little bit too rich just because of who else you have to pass. I don't want to pass DeAndre Hopkins for him. Mm-hmm. I don't want to pass Devontae Adams for him. I'm not going to pass Odell Beckham Jr. for him. I like him. I really do. I love him. But anyway, Alexander Mattison is probably, the biggest topic here. He's clearly the handcuff. We know Dallas Goedert and Dalvin Cook going together, Dallas Cook. So Dalvin Cook, we know, has had some injury history. Yes, this is a Kubiak offense. You want to own a part of the running game. So Alexander Mattison is a guy that should be targeted in every single one of your drafts because if Dalvin Cook goes down, he could win you a league. And he looked good the other night. He looked good.
Let me move along here let's go to the Saints. So we're wrapping things up here on the Fantasy Football Hustle. What'd you get from the Saints here? I saw Breeze got a little run.
Oh, last note on I know we talked running backs real quick on Vikings. Last note, we're going to see more 12 and 21. I actually went back and I dropped Adam Thielen's catch rate because I think he's going to see much less time in the slot this year. I also bumped up Kyle Rudolph. He did not look, he looked actually kind of spry out there, Drake. And man, he was open multiple times. He got 2, but he was open multiple times. If we know one thing about the Kubiak Shanahan offense, it creates a ton of room for tight ends. We talked about it potentially for Jimmy Graham as well. So if you're waiting late in drafts, folks, for tight end, or it just goes too early and you don't want to pull the trigger, keep those 3 names, in mind, right? Keep Jimmy Graham's name in mind, keep Kyle Rudolph's name in mind. I mean, these guys are going late in drafts. They're in really good spots as far as the offense, that they're in. Now I forgot the third guy, Drake. Who were we talking about before that? Anyway, people know. They heard us already say it.
Let's move
Sorry,
go over to the Saints now. We'll just see from the Saints.
Yeah, the biggest thing was just, charting out the first drive with the starters besides Drew Brees. Drew Brees was not in. Alvin Kamara got 10 snaps and Latavius Murray got 5, which is almost right around where it was for Kamara and Ingram last year when they were together. This was slightly higher. This was almost 68 to 70% for Kamara, where, typically he was more around 60%. So for me, all this did is cemented. Latavius Murray's probably fine. You know where he's going when you can get him in the 7th and 8th round of your draft, especially if you started heavy on receivers. He's not a guy that I've been going crazy with because I don't think he's as good as Mark Ingram. I like his role. I like what he'll be doing in this offense. But Ingram he's a really good running back. Latavius Murray's an okay running back. I do think there are going to be weeks where he has value. But I think what this does for me is Drake, it probably, I'm thinking Kamara may even see a little bit more. I don't want to overreact. We'll monitor this again over the next couple of first series that these guys all play, and we'll see what it looks like then. As far as the receivers go, one quick note, Ted Ginn and Traquan Smith were both on the field every time when they were in 11 personnel. Whenever they were in 2 wide receiver sets, Ted Ginn slightly edged out Traquan 3-2. So what this tells me, there's not a clear number 2 wide receiver. Jared Cook was out there for every play as the tight end, but it looks like to me Ted Ginn and Traquan Smith probably both kind of eat away at each other's production in an offense that's just not as pass heavy as it used to be. I still don't mind owning either one late in a best ball, but if for folks that have been counting on Traquan Smith just to jump up and own the role, we're not quite there. Again, it's early. We'll monitor it, but Ted Ginn is a good player for the role they want him in, which is to stretch the field. So I think he's going to be on the field plenty.
I think he's another guy you can get for a song late in drafts, and he just always puts up numbers, especially at best ball. The last game I want to talk about with you on this show, obviously we'll be back in the middle of the week. Let's talk about this Pittsburgh-Tampa Bay game. A lot of interesting young players on offense for both of these squads in terms of Jameis, and we've got the running backs, and we've got Godwin, and he's going to be going in the first round at some point in this preseason. Then we've got James Washington flashing on the other side. So a lot of our favorite guys here jumping off the page. Tell me your thoughts on this ball game.
Yeah, quickly. Saw a lot of 12 and 13 type personnel out of the Bucs early on. Again, just one data point. But when we were in 13 personnel, which is where you have 3 tight ends on the field, it was Godwin on the field, not Mike Evans. And I don't want to overplay this, but we heard earlier in the offseason Bruce Arians say Chris Godwin will never come off the field. He's not. He's never coming off the field. In that scenario, it was actually Evans that came off the field. Then we heard Evans come out whenever people were saying, hey, do you think Godwin, how good is he going to be as your number 2? And Evans, being honest with the media, said, I think we're actually competing for number 1. Who's number 1? I think we have a 1A, 1B. Wow. It's about to happen here. And again, this is a pervasive theme over the offseason all the way back to you and I think we're probably one of the first shows immediately
February we're talking about
when Arians signed. This is huge for Chris Godwin. So what I saw in this game, again, only one game, but when there's a drum beat like this, you pay attention. Godwin was the guy, man, moving all over the formation. He got protected off the line of scrimmage. Mike Evans is the X. Guess what the X does in this offense? He goes deep a lot. So the first read on this, unless Jameis sees single high, single coverage kind of stuff, a lot of times is going to be Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin I think there's a better chance than 10 to 20% that Godwin out targets Mike Evans. It really could happen. This isn't just hype. I know Chris Godwin's creeping up. He's going in the 3rd round quite often now, which, at face value, you're like, man, I don't know about this. But anyway, so moving along, the other thing is a lot of people going on and on. I think you were one of them, Drake, but I don't want O.J. Howard. There's Cameron Brate. I picture you doing this in a Seinfeld voice. I don't know why. That was a bad attempt at a Seinfeld voice. But O.J. Howard doesn't come off the field. Think of it this way. This team is going to run 12 and 11. So that's 2 tight ends and 3 wide receiver sets. Brashad Perryman is the 3rd receiver in 11. Brate is the 2nd tight end in 12. Those 2 guys, they're going to compete. They're going to be the complementary guys that basically fill out the 4th and 5th receiver roles. O.J. Howard is not losing snaps to Cameron Brate. He is not losing looks to Cameron Brate. O.J. Howard is the 3rd target in this offense, and people should draft him ahead of Evan Ingram easily. They should draft him ahead of Hunter Henry as well. And that's where he's going, and it's where he belongs to go because he might be the most talented tight end outside of, Kelsey, from a standpoint of being able to really stretch the seam and get big. Now, Kittle's a better run after the catch guy, but Howard is legit down the seams. And so he's going to get plenty of work. He's going to be the 3rd target in this offense, and they're keeping him out there. Last year, Howard rotated a lot with Brate. Now, this is one preseason game, but again, this is backing up what we've been hearing from Arians and from the camp reporters.
How about in the backfield? It looks like a pretty even split between Ronald Jones and Peyton Barber.
I know it pains me, Drake. I just bumped Barber ahead of Jones. I got to do it. When you look at, the way they worked this, and they could only do it for one drive. So I did find it significant that Ronald Jones did get on the field too with those starters, but it was Barber leading the way, and he got the most of, those snaps. It was Barber for 7 snaps. Yeah, 7 snaps. And then Ronald Jones came in for the next 5. Barber looks really good. It's, again, just preseason, but there was a play. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I mean, there was a play where literally there's nothing. He has his tackle is blown up in his face. Devin Bush, the rookie linebacker from Pittsburgh, is the guy destroying DeMar Dotson on this play. Yeah, he looked really good. He just caught this guy flat-footed and just bounced him onto the ground. The defensive tackle had already broke through a double team to penetrate the backfield. So Peyton Barber had already avoided that. Then he has his lineman blown up, laying in front of him, and this linebacker there. He hurdles through all of this, sticks the landing, immediately puts a spin move together, and gets 8 yards. And so this is the kind of stuff that, Barber consistently does. He doesn't break off the long carry after that, but he just, he consistently, when there's nothing there, he at least keeps the thing moving forward. And Ronald Jones came in. He had a couple of good carries too. I posted some of those. But if I had to make a call today based on not just this game, but everything leading up to it, I think you're looking at Peyton Barber being the lead back to own.
Finally, our guy, James Washington, big night for him.
Yeah. So Dante Moncrief has been dealing with a finger injury. There was reports that he was back, and then I saw another report where maybe he wasn't back. So I can't get a clear camp indication before this game, but he was held out, which for me had me thinking, okay, well, he is the starter. They're holding out, but there is a chance that was due to injury. But to your point, James Washington, if he took that as that message, that, okay, I'm the third receiver, well, he responded very well. The guy came out and he did everything, Drake. He caught short pass. He caught a drag pass where he took off for about an extra 15 yards on run after the catch. He caught an in-breaking route quickly out of his break where he had not traffic right on him, but 3 defenders within, arms to her length that you got to be thinking about. He concentrated, pulled the pass in, got the first down, caught a back shoulder pass from his old college quarterback, Mason Rudolph, for a touchdown. Was a great job of creating small separation down in the red zone to make a big play. The guy's not very tall, but dude, look at it. This dude's built. This guy, he's a stout player. He also had a touchdown catch that was called back because his second toe, he just didn't quite get the first toe in. It wasn't the drag when I went back and looked at the replay. His first toe was just barely out of bounds. So that would have been another touchdown catch. He had a deep ball, Drake, for like 45 yards right out of the gate where he had to high point it. It was not a really good – he could have beat the defender for a touchdown if it had been in the basket, over the shoulder. But he had to make an adjustment. He had to high point it with the defender then getting back into the play. I mean, everything you would have asked him to do, he literally put a display on of everything. I'll be honest, when I watch this, Dante Moncrief can't do all that stuff. We've seen Dante Moncrief. I'm still going to put my chip on James Washington. And I know, this is just one game, but all you can do is beat the defenders in front of you. And he did that in every way possible.
I love it, folks. That was a solid 70, almost 75 minutes of preseason content. We're getting you smarter. We're getting you ready for your drafts. We're going to see you next week when we're breaking down some tiers of Dwayne's draft plan. So if you want to win your league, make sure you're listening in. Subscribe on iTunes. Check us out at FF Hustle. We appreciate it. The show's only getting bigger and better from here. We'll see you later in the week, guys. Take care.
This has been the Fantasy Football Hustle. We're back next week with all you need for waiver wire, trades, roster management, and more. Until then, never get out hustled.